It might come as a real shocker, but Clash Royale has had some pretty good updates over the years. They don't always miss, and some of those great updates are still being updated to this day. However, the same can't be said about everything because some features are barely hanging in there. They haven't been updated in years or they feel completely forgotten. Today, we're taking a look at those features and giving a bit of history of why they exist and what was their original intended purpose.
Let's do this.
Tower troops. I remember being in Helsinki, Finland about a month before they announced it and seeing a presentation about it. And there were some concerns in the room about balancing, but I was extremely excited. It seemed like a really cool thing. The first tower troop would come out in January 2024, the Cannoneer, and although the community had mixed feelings about how good it was compared to the Princess, and they still have those debates today, I think the general consensus was that it was a pretty good update and everyone was looking forward to what they'd introduce in the future. A few months later, we got Dagger Duchess. That summer, we got a Goblin one for the Goblin Queen journey that was temporarily available. And in December, we got the Royal Chef. 4 in 1 year. Not bad. One of them was temporary, but still. And then they stopped. Yeah, I like to call it the 2024 feature because outside of that year, absolutely nothing has happened. Out with the old, in with the new. More evolutions kept coming in, champions, heroes, all the stuff in merge tactics, but no new tower troops. Even worse was that in early 2025, they straight up removed the tower chest, the only chest that guaranteed tower troops. Now, you could get them from lucky drops, but the drop rate of them was like less than 1% if I recall correctly. Today, with lucky chests, they don't even appear in the drop rate sheet that Supercell provides. I don't know if I'm blind or what, but yeah, you could still get it from lucky chests. It just seems like they forgot to put it in there. And the chests also did reappear once for a Clan Voyage event. But the point is, they're almost impossible to unlock now, and it doesn't seem like they're adding any new ones anytime soon. It's kind of sad. Tower troops had so much potential, and it's one of my favorite features, but it looks like they're giving it the old star level treatment these days. Card Masteries. I'm sure you have completed some mastery task and started to look around at certain cards and noticed this, a locked mastery with the words coming soon. This is actually there for most cards in the game. Out of the 120 plus cards we currently have, only 26 have that third slot unlocked, meaning you cannot get the level 10 mastery badge for most cards. It's quite sad because Masteries came out in early 2022. Back then, it was seen as another great way to get free rewards, something else to grind for that was free to play. What was there not to like? You get rewarded for using your favorite cards. It was awesome. And throughout 2022 and 2023, they added more masteries to some cards. Unfortunately, they also made the feature kind of worse because they nerfed the third level of the second task to reward gold instead of hundreds of gems. Yeah, it was terrible. Trust me, the community made that very vocal in them days. But that was it for more masteries. After 2023, we got nothing. Less than 30 cards have the third tier, and it's just been stuck like that. And for new cards, they've just been copying and pasting the first 2 levels with some generic ones from other cards like deal X amount of damage or whatever. Something to do, right? Because it would be weird if it launched without any. And Masteries have only suffered more since then. In 2025, following the removal of banner boxes, they've replaced the tokens with gold. And they also nerfed the gems earned from all tasks a few months later. So on top of not updating the feature at all, they slowly made the rewards worse and less special. And it's a shame because it's such a great feature, but it ended up as just another feature that they never finished. Private tournaments. When they first released in July 2016, they were called just tournaments. One word. It was intended to let players create their own tournaments using their own gems, and the gems would become the prize pool in the form of chests. So the more gems you spent, the bigger the prizes would be. This would later be renamed to custom tournaments, and the gem costs were considerably reduced. But at the time, this was alright. You could still create tournaments where you and your friends could fight for in-game rewards, and it remained this way for a while. However, over time, players got tired of it, and they wanted a revamp, make tournaments great again. They suck. So in December 2018, Supercell gave us what we wanted by splitting tournaments into two different features: global tournaments and private tournaments, which was the OG tournament system, just stripped out of all of its rewards. It was pretty clear that global tournaments were supposed to be the tournament revamp that everyone was asking for, because those had rewards and like a leaderboard and stuff like that. But private tournaments were just there to exist, and they almost immediately abandoned it. A few weeks later, they would add one extra setting to them, and that was it. That was the last time they updated private tournaments. Now, sure, there are many who still use the feature. The whole idea is to have a prize outside of the game. In that case, it makes the feature not so bad. But that's not the point of the video. Private tournaments have been the exact same since January 2019, with nothing done to it. It's been forgotten. There's been many ideas floating around for years, mostly just asking for more customization. But to Supercell, it's like the feature doesn't even exist. They even put it behind a menu that players rarely check. So some are baffled at the realization that they are still in the game. And I'm not sure if they'll ever update it. I mean, it does what it needs to do, so it'll likely remain that way. But it's still unfortunate that they never did anything else with it. They didn't even improve it over the years. Star levels. Okay, I think everyone knew this would be on this list because it's basically been the poster boy of forgotten features. Star levels were added in December 2018, and at the time, they were supposed to be endgame content. You know, when you max your card out, you get star points and you could buy some cool golden skins with it. It was just something for high-level players to grind for. It never had a purpose, just cool skins. However, the bulk of new skins were added in 2019. In 2020, the only card to get a skin was the Mother Witch, and she got a 3rd level in 2021, and that was it. It's kind of weird how they went back for the Mother Witch only, but for everything else, they stopped getting updated in 2019, less than a year after the feature had launched. The only thing they would add to new cards is the 1st star level, which isn't a skin, but just a golden deploy effect, and it spells a golden glow, but no skins. There was a change to the star level system in 2021 where they lowered the king level requirement from level 13 to 6. And increased the star points earned from upgrades. So now they were more accessible and open to most players. This was because by 2021, there was other endgame content, so locking skins behind a high level didn't make much sense anymore. But with the introduction of champions, they didn't even bother adding any to those. And by 2025, it seems they stopped adding even the 1st level to new cards, as the Spirit Empress is currently the only non-champion without it. When they reworked the 3 Musketeers in November 2025, they were forced to update the star level 2 for it, I guess. You know, you can't just remove it, but it looks like they didn't even put much effort into it, as only one of the 3 has golden features. It is very obvious that they do not want to add more, and it's unclear what the future of star levels is. I don't think they'll remove it, I just think that they'll eventually rework it into a different troop skin system and maybe refund those with a bunch of star points. Trade tokens and the trader. Introduced in September 2018, trade tokens were added due to popular requests. Being able to trade with your clanmates seemed like the most obvious feature to have, right? It's a card game after all. Trade cards you don't want for something you do want. And at the time, they were pretty accessible. You could find them in challenges, clan wars, the shop, and eventually they'd pop up in Clash Royale and Trophy Road. For a while, it was pretty good. Trade tokens were easy to come by and all was well. In 2020, they even introduced the Trader, a permanent card trader that sat in the Royal River and in the shop. However, in that same update, for some reason they removed tokens from Clan Wars, and ever since, their availability has been on a downward trend. They stopped appearing in shop offers. Wild cards slowly replaced the tokens throughout the game, and they would rarely be offered through events. It became like the forgotten magic item of sorts. By 2023, the only reliable way to obtain any trade tokens was to participate in a global tournament, but even those stopped appearing in the summer of 2025. At that point, trade tokens became unattainable outside of a few rare instances where they offered it in a tiered bundle. of course they would appear there. And for months, almost no one had any until they gave away some for Christmas that year, but still, there is no way to obtain them. Now, this could change in 2026, hopefully, but as of right now, it feels like the entire trade system has been totally forgotten. Until global tournaments come back, if they ever do, and they add them back into events, they'll remain this scarce item that makes trading a thing of the past. Hopefully, they don't give up on it and keep it in the game and just give us more tokens. Clan Wars and clans in general. This is mostly about Clan Wars here, but I did have a few things to say about clans as well. So Clan Wars, whether you like it or not, I think we can all agree that Supercell has completely forgot about this feature, or they choose to ignore it like everything else in this video because it hasn't received an update in years. The current iteration of Clan Wars was added in 2020. At the time, this was just supposed to be a massive overhaul to Clan Wars, but I'm sure you've heard many times that it was one of the most disappointing updates in Clash history. They overcomplicated Clan Wars with the new system. They made it boring, it was a buggy mess, and they removed some beloved features along with it. A lot of players left after this update, while others took really long breaks, like myself. Throughout 2020 and 2021, they would improve the Clan Wars 2 experience by adding some quality of life changes. However, it all felt like a lost cause because the problem was that people were already looking forward to Clan Wars 3. This was more of a joke, of course, but the feelings were real. Players either wanted Supercell to put the OG Clan Wars back, which was unlikely to happen, or overhaul it again, which was also unlikely to happen. So 2021 was the last time they did anything with it. Today, it has the same look, same terrible matchmaking, and the same outdated reward system. Most players ignore it these days, ending up in this screen by accident and being forced to deal with dual decks and the increasingly confusing deck UI across the entire game. Speaking of UI, clans have also been the exact same since 2020, even having some UI elements straight out of 2016. It's a bummer that they never did anything with it in terms of looks, functionality, and features. It's just been frozen in time with Clan Wars 2. Super cards. Yeah, those wacky cards that appear in events every now and then. Like everything else in this video, they are still in the game, but the current selection of super cards has been the same since 2024. They don't make them anymore. The reason for this is because super cards came from an era of Clash Royale before evolutions and heroes. In February 2022, developers had the brilliant idea of introducing super versions of existing cards that were only playable in specific events, and the first of these was the Super Lava Hound. Throughout 2022, they'd make 4 of these, the others being the Super Witch, Super Mini P.E.K.K.A, and Santa Hog Rider. And basically, they were the same cards we all know and love, but with some extra wacky abilities. Like the Santa Hog Rider, he dropped random gifts, and these gifts were like spell traps that would activate when a troop walked past it. In 2023, they added 5 more of them, and in 2024, only 2. The last one being the Super Knight. That makes a total of 11. Now, there are some older temporary cards that are sometimes classed as super cards, but that's besides the point. At the time, what was really the focus was evolutions. That was the new hottest thing, which were similar, but permanent. Supercell was probably like, why are we putting so much time and effort making temporary cards when we can make more permanent ones? And so they stopped making them. Evolutions became the new super cards, and then heroes. This doesn't mean that they won't add more temporary cards in the future, but the whole concept of super cards hasn't been a thing for a really long time. They'll likely remain the same selection of wacky cards that come around once in a blue moon. But yeah, that is every feature that I would consider forgotten by developers. Hopefully in 2026, they revisit some of these. I really want trading to make a great comeback, be a normal thing of our gameplay experience and not something we do every now and then. And skins. I mean, we were promised a future that never arrived, Anyway, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed, but hey, YouTube thinks you'll like this next video, so let me check it out. Until next time though, have a blessed one.